Hello and welcome to Health Professional Radio. I'm your host, Neal Howard. Thank you so much for joining us. Our guest in studio is Dr. Mary Wingo, earned her Ph.D. in human stress research from the University of North Texas. Her specialty is physiology, and specifically the human physiological stress response. She's also an author. She's the author of The Impact of the Human Stress Response, and she's in studio today with us to talk about stress and the 5 major causes of stress in our modern society. Welcome to Health Professional Radio, Dr. Winger.
Thank you. Thank you, Neal.
Thank you. Stress. We're all under stress on a constant basis. Some of us have a lot more stress than others. And I guess what looks like stress to a person, to me, doesn't necessarily have to be a stressor to them, while what they see is a very easy thing for me might be something that I'm barely making it through. You're here today to talk about stressors. What are some of the stressors mentioned in your book, The Impact of the Human Stress Response?
Yes. I have a really important chapter where I go over in modern society the 5 basic causes of stress. Okay, and this is, when I mean stress, I'm talking about stress and all of the costs. Human costs, financial costs, political costs associated. Okay. So let me go over this list. It's very interesting, actually. Number 1 is complexity, and when I mean complexity in how we think. Okay, so like for instance, as I mentioned before, multitasking is actually very, very bad for you. I mean, seriously,
really? I thought it was a good skill to have.
No, it's well, I know that this is gonna, probably ruffle a few feathers, but no, it's just a throwback to the work ethic that we've been taught, that more is more. Well, actually, more is far less, because what happens when you overschedule, you overthink, you multitask. I mean, and this is what I was trained to do. I'm sure this is how you were trained in the educational system to function. Well, what that does, now up to a certain point, okay, yeah, we need the brain exercise, but after a certain point of stress, the frontal lobe actually starts shutting down. And what happens there is your ability to plan and strategize and follow through with actual solutions in your life, actual ways to resolve stress through, strategic thinking. Mm-hmm. That starts to suffer. So, bam, right there.
So it's 2, sort of kind of an analytical shock.
Yeah. What happens is that, you got to respect your brain as like you would, like, say, a Lamborghini engine, okay? Especially the frontal lobe. The frontal lobe is the part of the brain, since it's like the newest part of the brain, it is very fantastic in its abilities, but it's also very unstable. And so it will just go offline for, almost any type of stressor. And so you've got to really, really protect it, because it's not just that, it's also emotional regulation. So, everyone knows, like, when you get too stressed, you start getting really snappy, you lose your temper, you can't think straight. Well, this is just indicative of what's going to be happening to your body if you keep, if you keep engaging in this. So it is, I know that it's un-American to say this, but because that's just not how we were trained. But this is very, very bad. It's very bad. Okay, so number 1. Number 2 is lack of social equality. Okay,
Ooh,
so inequality. Inequality. So when the resources, the fat cats at the top, grab it all, and all those peons at the bottom are scrambling for crumbs. Okay, that sort of arrangement. Okay, so you kind of painted a picture there for you. That sort of arrangement has been studied extensively, and that causes much early death and much explosion in the occurrence of stress-related diseases. Okay, so it's toxic. And so, yeah, I'm just kind of sort of throwing this out, sort of, I don't even know, if this is even going in the right direction, but maybe you can understand why revolutions happen.
Absolutely.
Because it's instinctively, when society gets very unequal, okay, people know that their lives are at stake. They may not know, well, hey, my cortisol and adrenaline are so high that, I'm going to get a disease that, that might kill me at 55. They may not know that, but they know that their lives are at stake somehow. It's this is what pushes revolutions. So lack of social equality. Number 3, is kind of related. This is loss of social capital. Okay, so your social networks, friends, family, close networks. I live here in Ecuador, and let me tell you, I didn't realize how much we in the modernized world have lost our social connections, our social capital. Until I saw how society worked down here. And it's just absolutely wealthy in social capital. You don't have homeless and hungry people down here.
Is that a fact? So
that's a fact.
So working together in a positive way with people is enough to reduce stress in a society on that huge of a level. I mean, we were here in other segments and talked about trillions of dollars being wasted simply dealing with or not dealing with the effects of stressors in our lives.
Yes. And in fact, if you really want to kind of look into it, social capital replaces a lot of financial capital when employed correctly. And then financial capital, when it starts, creeping into society, automatically starts replacing social capital. So, you don't need your sister to babysit. You don't like her anyway. I can hire a babysitter. I got money. I don't need any help. I don't need my brother-in-law to come, pick me up, because my car's broken. No, I can call AAA. I've got the money. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, absolutely.
Repeat this, rinse and repeat trillions of times. And we see where we've lost a tremendous amount. And whether it's religious, whether it's just social, whether it's through especially political involvement, we have lost a tremendous amount since the 1850s.
Now, what was different in the 1850s as opposed to what's going on now politically? I mean, politics is politics.
Oh, no. It's a lot more political involvement. It's a lot like Ecuador is today, because Ecuador's been through it all. You've got tons of watchdogs, and people. It's like if things start to go awry, there's like a protest, and then of course the government's a little bit afraid of the people. So the government, okay, we'll back off. And so actually, it works. It works down here. It works.
And with social media and the internet in conjunction with television and radio broadcasting, it seems now that, us common folks are dealing with the exact same stressors as our world leaders, because we hear what they're doing and what's going on with them instantaneously rather than having to wait for a letter or for the next day's edition of the news.
Oh, it's really funny. Here's a little caveat, going back to number 2. The inequality. Now, usually speaking, when a hierarchy is stable, okay, the fat cat in charge has got a lower cortisol, an overall lower stress reactivity than the guys at the bottom. However, it's completely opposite when the hierarchy is unstable. So I assume that to be a leader now in almost any nation is a living hell. That it's probably the worst job you could have, because you're not just sitting pretty. I mean, things are shaking under your feet, and you're the person whose head's going to roll. So we have that. Okay, so number four, this kind of changes. So we we're in the psychological realm for the first 3. 4 is a little bit more geeky. It is the derangement or depletion of the human biome. So the human biome is like the little critters that we have dwelling in our gut and on our skin and in all of our orifices that we have evolved with over, well over 1 million years, if not more. And what these do, these little critters collectively act as extensions of our organ systems. So, for instance, synthesis of vitamins, so that's extension of the digestive system, synthesis conjunction of signaling for immune responses, cellular growth. That is, the cells of your body work together with these microbial cells in order to help you function better.
Now, is cortisol burning these critters out the same way that it kind of burns the inside of your arteries when you get upset and stressed out?
It acts in part, but most of it is just because of because of exposure to various chemicals and processed food and stuff that our body has been. It's chemicals and processes, the way that of things that we ingest that have been created in the last 50, 60 years that we haven't had a chance to evolve. We don't have the enzymes. We just don't have the mechanisms because the stuff is very, very new. And so we have completely screwed up our proper flora within and on our bodies. And that has caused a tremendous amount of stress, chemical stress, to our organ systems. And number 5, okay, and this is sort of related to number 4, is actual chemical stress, okay? And you've got 2 types, voluntary. So, for instance, what we were talking about a second ago, exposure to hygiene products, cleaning products, processed food, antibiotics, maybe other types of pharmaceuticals. This is all voluntary. This is just our modernized lifestyle. This is a sign that, in theory, that you live in civilized society, okay? And then the other, which is very creepy, is involuntary exposure, and this is the contamination and pollution of our soil, air, and water. And it is thought that this type of chemical stress results in 40% of the world's deaths.
Does the impact of the human stress response address the stressors that we just talked about in much more detail and give us information on how we can prevent control these stressors when they come? Because if you're running for political office, like you say, a living hell it must be, but you're still going to do it. Is the answer just to decide not to run for office and become a cab driver, or maybe start gardening or maybe start a farm, totally change? Or how do you control the stressors that you've decided to undertake in order to, make maybe some changes in the world?
Well, let me tell you, let me ask you, do the world leaders look like they're functioning very well?
No.
They act like they're in panic. Yeah, they act like they're about to fall apart. So, yeah, there you go, right there. You're the hot shot of a collapsing cracker box palace. So it's not fun. I wouldn't want to be. It's all like, everyone can make their own decisions in life. But my book, all I wanted to do was add a vocabulary. So the stuff that your grandmother always warned you about, it's actually quantified a little bit. You actually have a book that, like, okay, well, this is, an actual risk factor, and you can go through, and yes, goes through in much detail all 5 of these causes and what you need to do in order to address these.
And where can our listeners get a copy of The Impact of the Human Stress Response, Mary?
You can go to marywingo.com, or you can get either a paperback or Kindle off of Amazon.
Great. You've been listening to Health Professional Radio. I'm your host, Neal Howard. We've been in studio with Dr. Mary Wingo discussing the top 5 stressors that each of us face on a daily basis. Some of us a lot more than others, but all of us certainly facing these stressors. It's been great having you here with us today, Mary.
Oh, thank you. It is my pleasure, totally.
Thank you. Transcripts and audio of this program are available at healthprofessionalradio.com.au and also at hpr.fm, and you can subscribe to this podcast on iTunes.